Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, where we're here to help you and your family cruise a little bit smarter. And I'd like to welcome back to the show our co-host, Christy from PackYourPixieDust.com. How you doing today, Christy?
Hi, good morning. I'm well. How are you?
Not too bad. You're getting ready to head out to New Orleans today, aren't you?
I am. I'm super excited.
Any big plans there besides I know you're going to a wedding?
Yeah, so the wedding is kind of the plan.
Okay.
And I understand there's a parade, some sort of parade I'm going to. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not sure when or anything. I just know I'm going to a parade. And that's it. I'm pretty excited.
I went to New Orleans a long time ago in my 20s, and I'd like to go as an adult.
Yeah, we're basically there on Saturday. We arrived pretty late tonight. We leave really, really early on Sunday, but we have Saturday at least.
Oh, that's cool. Well, we are headed out to the beautiful Midwest today, and I'd like to welcome to the show Dave from Iowa. How are you doing today, Dave?
I'm doing great. How are you two doing?
Not too bad, and thanks for reaching out and offering to come and share your family's experience. Now, you guys went on your first cruise ever with Disney here just this past spring break, correct?
That is correct, yeah. Just back in March we went.
Well, let's just jump right into it. Why don't you give us a little bit of background about your family? Are you guys the type that traveled out of the Disney parks to go to Disneyland? What got you interested in going on a Disney cruise?
So we have, my wife and I have 3 kids. Right now they're ages 12, 11, and 8. And we do visit Disney parks. We went on our first Disney trip back in 2013. We went to Disneyland, and we've kind of had this schedule now of every other year we've hit a Disney park. So we did Disneyland in 2013, fell in love with everything Disney at that point. I had never been to a Disney park in my life. My wife went once in high school, so that first experience kind of opened up our eyes to how amazing everything was with Disney. So we went again to Disneyland in 2015. Went to Disney World, Walt Disney World, in the fall of 2017, and then the cruise now in 2019. And the cruise was something we put on a bucket list probably, I think, about 10 years ago. We made once we started to be in a place where we could afford to travel more than, just within the Midwest, we made a bucket list of places we wanted to go to. And we said, all right, 15-year anniversary, we're going to do some kind of cruise. And so it's been on there for a while. And then once we fell in love with Disney, those two things kind of lined up and decided to do a Disney cruise.
And was this your 15-year anniversary?
It is. It's going to be our 15-year anniversary in just a couple weeks here. And so this was kind of our we surprised our kids with this at Christmas. And so it was a Christmas gift and our 15-year anniversary gift. Christmas was in December. Anniversaries in May. We met in the middle and did a spring break trip in March.
That's perfect.
Yeah, it worked out really well. The timing did.
That's funny. So you said you went to Disneyland the first time in 2013, correct?
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Our families are the exact same way. We went to Walt Disney World when I was, a kid, and then we never went back until 2013 when we took our kids there the first time. And we that was the first vacation that I think that we went on, and I think maybe our kids were just getting old enough where, like, my wife and I could just totally relax. We went to the parks and we just had a blast at Disneyland where we could just kind of relax. The kids could just be kids, and there's like tons of other kids around there. So if they're being loud, it's not, ruining anybody else's vacation. That's funny. We did the exact same thing at the exact same year. So
yeah, that's pretty funny. Were you there in September of 2013? Maybe we were there at the same time.
We were there at Christmas time. So
okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
just after you guys. So
yeah.
Well, awesome. So what made you think about, you talked about the cruise, but why did you pick this cruise as far as being on the Fantasy in the Western Caribbean?
It was really just the timing of it being over spring break. When I booked this cruise, our school calendar was not yet released for the 2019 year. And so we booked it, and I made a gamble on when I thought spring break was going to be, and I was wrong. So originally what I had booked was a 5-night, I don't know if it was a Magic or the Wonder, but it was out of Miami, and it was they had a Marvel Day at Sea. And then, like, the day after I booked that, the school calendar was released, and I realized I was wrong on when I thought spring break was going to be. So that was kind of one of the first things I learned is I was panicking, like, oh my gosh, I already put the down payment down. We're screwed. What are we going to do now that we can't go on this cruise? And I found out it was super simple to change the dates. Yeah. Yeah. So we booked through Costco Travel. And so I called Costco and they got it changed to the week of the 16th through the 23rd, I think was our cruise. So yeah, that's how we decided on the Fantasy. It wasn't really like, we knew we wanted to go over spring break and we wanted to go to Castaway Cay. That was really the only requirement. And so it was finding a cruise that lined up with that.
Christy, any thoughts for people that want to or need to change their cruise dates?
It's very easy. You will likely get the prevailing price. So whatever the price is going for at that day is the price that you'll pay, but it's super easy to change your dates. They'll move your money over. If you are using a placeholder, which you book on board and it gives you a discount or onboard credit on a future cruise, then that still has to be used within those 2 years. But even still, Disney can move all that money. The deposits are totally refundable except for concierge cabins up until your final payment date. So makes it easier.
Yep.
So Dave, this being your first cruise, and you kind of go through that panic moment there when you initially book, and then you have to change it. What were some of the other resources that you reached out to kind of help you plan for a cruise? Because it's not quite as, I think Walt Disney World's just overwhelming if you haven't been there before.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yeah.
And the cruises aren't quite that way, but there still is a lot of things that if you plan ahead of time can really help you out. So what did you guys use to do that?
Yeah, a few different podcasts, including yours, the Disney Cruise Line blog, the Disney Cruise website, basically just blogs and podcasts that we used. And what the way that we kind of did it is we kind of took one thing at a time. And so, we spent a lot of time trying to understand how the shore excursions or the port adventures would work, figured out, what to do in each place. And then we kind of moved on to food, understanding how the food works. My wife is lactose intolerant, and then also for some other health reasons avoids gluten. And so, working through that, and actually the you had a podcast with, I can't remember her name.
Sarah.
Yes. Yeah. That was super helpful for us to listen to. And then we move on to the next thing. Okay. We got food and excursions let's figure out how tips work. And that I read a lot about tips just to try to understand it. And so I guess it's just kind of looking through, for us, it was looking through what are the different things that we know are going to happen on the cruise, and then trying to figure out all we could learn about that topic.
Yeah, we're going to have Sarah actually back on again here in a couple of weeks. So look for an update for those of you out there who have food allergies. I know she's got some different things that she just got off a cruise. So some different things that have changed on the cruise line and also down at Disney World that we're going to talk to her about too. So
awesome.
And I think excursions too, that's one of the things that I always have a hard time. You're going someplace new, you don't know what to do. I think Disney's a good place to start to kind of look and see what the excursions that they offer. So you kind of get a good sense of what's available, but then, Cruise Critic and some other sites like that can kind of maybe expand what other things might be available for people too. So I don't know, Christy, what do you use
to decide what I want to do?
Well, I guess for somebody who's going on a cruise the first time, do you have any other advice as far as excursions? Trying to figure out what to do in the different ports if you're going someplace new.
Well, it depends on the family or who's cruising, and so that I guess is one advantage of booking. If people decided to book with a travel agent that does a lot of traveling versus just a booking engine, which both ways are fine, but somebody like myself that does the traveling, we can then identify some excursions that might be good for that family. He's got older kids, and so snorkeling might actually make sense in ziplining and things like that, or versus people with younger kids that have to do different experiences. And so they have that pirate boat in one of the ports, and so somebody with younger kids might do good with that type of experience. So just things like that, depending on the age of the people involved.
Not trying to throw Costco under the no. Did you get that kind of information from your agent through Costco? Just out of curiosity.
No, we didn't. And we weren't. I love the trip planning portion of it, and so we weren't really looking for that in a booking engine. We just wanted the $700 Costco gift card.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. And so, but other than that, we love kind of doing it all on our own and doing the work. That's a fun thing for us. I know that's not for everyone, but for us, we enjoy it.
No, I mean, I enjoy that too. I mean, it's a little bit of work, but it's kind of cool when it all kind of comes together at the end. So,
yeah, and Steve, what you said too about starting with the Disney cruise excursions, that's exactly what we did. Is we kind of started from there and looked to see what they offered, and then used that as a kind of a launching point to figure out, do we want to use one of these or do we want to try something else? So, I think that's a good tip.
And I do give a shout out to Scott at the Disney Cruise Line blog, using he's got a lot of those onboard navigators, and the navigator's just the weekly, day in and day out what goes on the cruise. I never used that to begin with, but now if we're going on a cruise that we haven't been on before, I really take a look at that just to see, not so much like, when is, the towel folding class or something like that, but more just just kind of get an overall sense of what has been offered in the past if you're going someplace new. So
yeah.
Well, and what they offer in general. And so as a first-time cruiser, I like it because it just gives you an idea. Okay, so characters are typically available in the morning and then on port days, and then in the late afternoon, or just the late afternoon, depending on the port. And then you know that you have that middle of the day to do something else, because even though you want to be able to do exactly what you want, it's just not the way it works anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Even Norwegian's freestyle cruising, you still have to make reservations for everything now. So it's just the way it is for everybody, unfortunately.
Well, you guys are in the middle of the country. They're in beautiful Iowa. How did you guys get down to Orlando, and what did you guys do before the cruise?
Yeah, we took the 20-hour drive. I know it's it's a long drive, but man,
you have a million kids.
Family of 5. We saved over $1,500 by driving, and so. That's a lot of money to save, and
it's a lot of money.
Yeah. So yeah, we drove there in 2 days and then came back in 2 days. And so we went down, we actually took the kids out of school a little early on Wednesday, or after school on Wednesday, we hit the road. And then they missed school on Thursday. They didn't have school on Friday, but we arrived in Orlando Thursday night, and we stayed at the Pop Century then for 2 nights.
Fun.
Yeah. Which we'd not stayed there before, and rooms are great. It's a fun place to stay. Didn't go in any parks at all. Again, as a family of 5, that's dropping an extra $500 to $600. So we just went around Disney Springs. That's something that we didn't do when we went to Disney World in 2017. We never experienced Disney Springs, and so we spent a lot of time in there shopping and eating. We toured some. We kind of went around the monorail loop. We had dinner at California Grill, Sunset, and then watched fireworks from up there. So basically just hung out at Disney Springs and then checked out a whole bunch of resorts. It was a great time. And that was plenty for us to do in the day and a half that we were there.
Yeah, there's just so much stuff to do down there outside of the parks that it's easy. Like, I mean, to do some pretty cool things, like just going around. Like we did the monorail for the first time with my kids on this last cruise, and man, they had a blast just seeing the parks and going through the different hotels, and then we watched the fireworks from. Since we're DVC, we just went up to Top of the World Lounge and watched them up there. But you guys are over at California Grill and seeing that. There's a lot of things that you can do without spending money in the parks.
Exactly.
Yeah. That are just as much fun. So, well, how did you guys get over to Port Canaveral the next day? Obviously, you had your car. So did you guys drive over and did you park in the parking garage, or what'd you do?
Yep, we drove over, dropped the family off with the luggage, and then I went to park, and that's when I discovered that we have a Yakima luggage or like storage mount on top of our car.
Oh no!
And
it didn't fit.
Too tall. Yeah, it was too tall to get into the garage, and so thankfully there were still spots out, and we didn't leave anything in the car, that was going to get super hot or anything like that. We didn't have any electronics in there, so it was fine just sitting out in the Florida sun for a week. But yeah, that was a bummer. I was planning on parking in the parking garage and having it covered and everything, but it's fine. So yep, parked there. You do have to pay up front. I'm used to paying when you leave a parking garage, but you got to pay up front when you go to park there. So paid for.
Logical, actually.
Yeah, for sure.
Unexpected, but logical, because they know how long your cruise is.
Exactly. Like it was unexpected, but as soon as they asked for it, I realized, oh yeah, they know that I'm going to be here for 7 days, so let's just get this done with. So
how was the embarkation process itself then once you guys got into the terminal?
Everything was pretty smooth. I think we ended up being, I don't remember the exact time we said we're going to be there. It was around 11-ish or something. And we ended up being group 11. And then we got some photos. Pluto was around, so we got some photos with Pluto. The only thing I was worried about was we did not get passports for our kids. And I read that stinking thing on Disney Cruise website over and over again, probably 50 times, to make sure that I wasn't misreading it and that we could just get by with our birth certificates. But that was the only thing I was nervous about. Like, I just had this feeling that I misread something and that we would have to have passports for our kids, but everything was fine. We got checked in quickly. They gave us the itinerary for the day, and we were in line to get on board.
So this is your guys' first time on a cruise ship, first time seeing the Disney Fantasy. Oh my gosh, what were the kids' kind of thoughts as you guys pulled up, saw the ship, and then as you walked on board?
Yeah, their minds were blown when they saw it, when they saw just how big it is. I noticed as we were walking on board, I looked over at our oldest daughter who's 12, and she was crying as we were walking on board. Tears of joy, obviously.
Aww.
But it was, you get your name announced and you step into that atrium and everything is just so beautiful. And it's hard to describe it, but it's kind of breathtaking when you walk in for the first time and see all that.
I think they do a great job in Port Canaveral. There's a couple ports, like if you got on Miami, I believe it's in Miami where you come in on the deck above the atrium. And so you don't quite get that experience that you have. So, especially for you guys the first time, that's awesome that you had that. So what were you guys' plans, that first getting on? It's kind of a little bit of chaos. There's a lot going on, first cruise. What were your guys' thoughts? How did you attack it?
Yeah. So we just decided to just take a tour of the ship. We had read that a lot of people will go swimming that first day. And this being our first cruise, we just weren't sure how all that was going to work out. And so we just toured around the ship. We checked out the kids clubs, just kind of walked around, tried to get a lay of the ship where everything was. And, looking back on it, if we cruise again, which we will, we would probably swim on that first day now that we've had that experience of understanding how everything works. It was more time on the ship than we expected before you actually leave. I felt like it was just going to be an hour or something, but it was a few hours that we had. So at one point, we went down to our room, got our luggage was there, so we got everything unpacked for the week, and then we did the muster drill, which there's people that were late to it, which was kind of a bummer. So we had to wait around for them before we could start, and then we ended up being late then to the sail away party. That was a bummer, but everything was fine. Sailing away was cool to do that, and you see all the people waving from Port Canaveral as you leave. But to answer your question, we basically just toured around the ship. And like I said, it was more time than we thought we were going to have. So there's definitely time to swim if that's something you want to do.
What type of cabin did you guys go with?
We had, we're on deck 6, and we had an ocean view veranda. And again, with the family of 5, our options were more limited. We looked at, do we do 2 inside staterooms that are together? But the price was even a little higher than, an ocean view veranda. So yeah, with the family of 5, you're kind of limited to what you can get. But the veranda, man, it was awesome. I would definitely do that again, having a veranda.
So with 5, you get the pull down bed, so you get the bunk bed, and then you get the bed at the end for the 3 kids. How did the space work for your family? It
was enough space for us because, with your stateroom attendants, they're the ones who take the beds down and get everything set up. So when we were actually using the room, aside from sleeping, all those beds are put back. There was plenty of space for us to move around. Each kid had their own bed then at night, so they didn't have to share beds, which they're used to when we travel, 2 people sharing a bed in some way. Yeah. So they each had their own bed, and it was enough space for us as a family of 5.
We've been in that size room with a family of 4, and then the room's smaller than that. And Disney does such a great job with the amount of space on there. Christy, any other thoughts for a family of 5 where else they could go?
Well, their only other option is the family ocean view, or concierge, or 2 inside cabins. 2 of any cabin, but you're either in the family size cabins, a suite, or those are your options.
Yeah.
So sail away party happens. You guys are on your way. What did you guys get for dinner? What were you thinking? Your kids are a little bit older, so they're not, I'm not sure when you guys normally eat. You could probably be a little bit more flexible, to go to the evening ones. What did you guys have? Or what were you able to get as far as dining? Did you have the earlier or the later?
We ended up with the later. So when we first booked that original cruise out of Miami, we had the early dining. But when we went to change it, the only one that was available was the later. And I was a little bummed by that because that's 8:15. Our family usually eats around 6:00. And so I was a little bummed, but looking back on it, we loved having that later dinner for our family, with our kids being a little bit older. And so, yeah, we had the late dinner. Actually allowed us to have 2 dinners, which is the benefit.
First dinner. I love first dinner.
Yes. So because our dinner was not until later, we'd have that first dinner at like late afternoon. Sometimes we would order room service, like a cheese plate, and have some room. And so that worked out well. And then also it felt like, maybe skipping ahead a little bit here, but with having that second dinner, we did not feel rushed at all in eating. And I feel like if we would have had that early one, we would have still known, like, all right, we still got to get to entertainment. We want to do this other thing. But for us, the dinner was kind of the last planned thing of the night. And so we didn't feel as rushed trying to get through it, and could just relax a little bit more. It was like a good, you shouldn't eat and then just like go straight to sleep, but it was a good way to end the day, at least, having a dinner and then, just walking around the ship after that, or checking out a movie or whatever we wanted to do. So it was a low pressure way to get through a meal.
We are totally with you. On our last cruise, we had the early dinner. We're going to do the later dinner on the next one, just because now that our kids are older, they can handle it. You can get a snack, like you said, but I don't know, man, that 5:30 dinner just comes quick, and it feels like you're rushed and you get through it. I don't know. I'm with you on that. I think that we are definitely going to do the later dinner next time, just for to feel like a little bit more relaxed, I guess. And then for the kids, we can talk about the kids clubs here in just a second, but our older one, a lot of the older kids don't eat until the later dinner. So that 2-hour time period after dinner before he's hooking up with his friends up at the kids club too, was kind of a dead time for him too. I mean, we hung out as a family and did some stuff, but I think there's some definite advantages of having that later dinner like you're talking about.
Yeah, for sure.
A couple of quick housekeeping points on some of those comments. First, I'm so glad it worked out for you to go to second seating and that it worked out. But just to note that everybody can put themselves on a waiting list for first dining if you can't just get it when you check in. And almost all of those wait lists eventually go through, at least by the second night of the cruise. So that is an option. If it doesn't go through before you get on the ship, you can talk to that food table, which I should always look up the name because we've referenced it so many times and I never have the name. But there is somewhere you go to talk about dining, and it's in that Navigator the first day. And you can be placed on a waiting list there as well if it hasn't been switched. But almost everybody is switched by the time the cruise happens. And then finally, some people with kids prefer maybe not my size kid or just my family, because I need to eat early. But they prefer the second seating because they will rush the kids' food, and then they will actually collect the children and take them away.
Yes. The people that sat at our table had one kid, and he did that every night. He would eat his meal quickly, and then a counselor would come and he would go down to the kids club after that.
Yeah, so that's an option for people who, A, want to utilize the kids club, and then the parents can have a more leisurely dinner on their own as well if they want. So there are some advantages to that second seating for that feature. Mm-hmm. They do not grab the children during first seating. I mean, you can certainly go and take your kid to the kids club yourself, but the counselors don't come and take them.
That's a really good point. We haven't talked about that in a long time as far as the second seating, that they do that for the kids. They get their food quick and take them out. Well, thinking about the different restaurants, what were your thoughts, Dave?
Yeah, we like them all. Animator's Palette was... The only downside to Animator's Palette is that we were placed right under like the TV that they do the Crush show on. Uh-huh. And it was super loud. And, that very first night we were with these people that we had never met before, which is kind of awkward. You got to meet them, talk about where you're from. And that like sets up the whole week, is because you get a baseline understanding of who these people are. And we could not hear a word that they were saying because it was just so loud underneath the TV and underneath the speakers. And then service felt a little rushed the first night, but then, fast forward to the end of the cruise, and we realized like, oh man, we're having this breakfast with our servers and they're turning around. Well, they were getting ready for your ship, Steve, your cruise. And so, for them to be able to have that breakfast, turn everything around and get ready for dinner the first night, I totally get why dinner could feel a little bit rushed on that very first night. But after that, restaurants were all fantastic. We loved them. The service was better than the restaurants, and we did eat at Palo one night as well. So that was also really, really good.
Well, let's talk about Palo quick. What'd you guys do with the kids that night, and what were your thoughts of Palo?
We ended up just ordering room service, and the kids hung out in the room and watched a movie. So we did not send them to the kids club. They just hung out in the room, fell asleep on their own. We came back from Palo, and they were fast asleep.
Isn't that amazing when you get to that age and you can do that kind of stuff? It's so nice, isn't it?
Yes, it's incredible. Yeah. Yeah. And, we would check in with them using the Navigator app, text them and make sure that they were okay. And eventually they stopped responding, which is either like, oh no, it's the worst situation possible, or they've fallen asleep. And so the last 30 minutes of dinner were a little panicked because they weren't responding, but they were asleep. So it's good. Yeah, Palo was great. It was a full moon that night, so it was just beautiful. Our server was fantastic. We aren't huge Italian fans. Like when you think of traditional American Italian food, like pasta and marinara. But this was not that at all. We loved the dinner. There was a sole fish that we had that was fantastic. We had the souffle, of course. And just everything about it was perfect. The only downside that night was the ship was moving a lot. I mean, when we were in entertainment the night that we went to Palo, you could see the curtains swaying during the entertainment. And that was Marcus Monroe was that night, who's the juggler and does unicycles. And so that was tough for him because the ship was moving so much. And being up at Palo, you could really feel the ship moving a lot. And so there was a lot of people getting escorted out. And I'm not sure if that was from the wine or from the movement or some of both, but you could really feel the ship moving a lot up there. But, obviously that's out of Disney's control. It just was a rocky night on the ocean. But the service and the food at Palo was fantastic.
So I was processing all of what he was saying, but also just thinking, the Fantasy it's a rockier ship. So part of it is because it goes really far. But part of it is there's something about the stabilizers on that ship that is, in terms of stability, it is the least stable of the four, in my opinion. Also, it goes long distances. So that makes a difference. But it's also the least stable of the Disney ships.
Gotcha. Interesting.
Did you guys use Dramamine or anything like that for you guys or the kids? Or did you guys, because it was this is the rockiest the one that we did right after you guys a couple days. But in all honesty, like my wife took some stuff. I can't remember what she takes. I think she takes Bonine, and none of our kids had any problems. So did you guys have any problems with that?
No, not really. No, we had some like ginger chews and some Dramamine, and we took them a couple nights. Like when we first got on, we were nervous about that, like having never cruised before, not knowing, is our cruise going to be ruined from being seasick every night. But so the first couple days we would just take some Dramamine, but we never really needed it. Okay. So except for that night with the ship was moving a lot. So that was the only night.
Well, talking about Marcus Monroe, what were your thoughts on some of the different shows that you guys got to see?
Let me think here. So I think the first one was Wishes. Is that the one with that's at like the high school age kids?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That was good. Comparing it to Believe, for me at least, and I think the rest of our family too, there was not a comparison. Like Believe to us was so much better than what Wishes was. Still really, really good, but we just loved to Believe a lot. We had a ventriloquist, Marcus Monroe, the juggler and comedian, and there's one more that I'm trying to remember.
You guys didn't have Aladdin, did you?
No, we did not.
Yeah, you were in the same boat as us.
You guys both missed it. That is so sad.
You could, when we were in line, when we were in embarkation line, you could see everyone looking at the itineraries, realizing like, oh my gosh, we don't have Aladdin on our ship. And that was a bummer at first. Aladdin the Broadway tour came through Des Moines this last winter, and we decided not to go because we were going to watch it on the ship. I know. We're going to watch it on the ship. We've seen the performance of Aladdin at California Adventure, and so there's at least that. But it was a bummer, but also we felt like the rest of the entertainment was so great. We ended up not even when we were getting on the ship, we were bummed about it, but we never thought about it after that because the entertainment was all great. Even there was a night where they played Captain Marvel for entertainment, and we hadn't seen that movie and wanted to see it, and so that was still a lot of fun for us. So we didn't really know what we were missing out on, I guess, because we hadn't seen it before. But yeah.
How about some of the other entertainment around the ship? Did you guys do trivia? Did you do any of the family, know your family or anything like that?
Yeah. That was that ended up being our family's nightly routine. Was we would go to the entertainment at 6:15, and then we would find one of the family games either in the D Lounge, or they had a lot of games down in the Tube in Europa. So we did I think it's called You Think You Know Your Family, and my youngest daughter and I were on stage for that.
Nice.
And won. Yeah, we actually won, which was a lot of fun.
Wow.
And she had that entire crowd in the palm of her hand because she's just adorable and was so much younger than all the other kids that were up there. And so one of the questions was, they asked her if you had a blank check, what would you buy? And I guess that she would choose to buy a unicorn. And that is exactly that's exactly what she would buy if she had a blank check, was a unicorn. And so it was just a lot of questions like that they thought, there's no way I'm going to be able to answer unicorn, and I got it. So that was a lot of fun. We got our picture with the host. I can't remember his name. It was not the guy from England. It was a different guy. Steve, I heard you mention the guy from England. I think his name was Chris.
Yeah.
He did he would do a lot of the adult games, but the family ones were done by someone else. I can't remember his name, but
I'm trying to remember his name too. But I can picture him. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. So that was kind of our routine, was go to the large entertainment, and then go play a game as a family, and then go to dinner. And so that ended up being our kind of every night. That's what our ritual was.
We didn't do it the first couple of times, and I think it was our friends the Towlers that we saw them doing it and pushed us into engaging with the cast more. And obviously you're pretty outgoing. Your daughter must be pretty outgoing to get up in front of everybody like that. But I'm telling you, once you get over the fear of doing that, and you do that the first couple of times, that's what really makes the cruising fun, I think, in my mind. And what was cool then is that I wish I remembered the host name, but then the host remembered both of our names through the rest of the week. And then people who were in the crowd would come up and talk to us then throughout the rest of the week and introduce themselves. And so that was really neat. Yeah.
You were little celebrities.
We were little celebrities.
And did you get the winner medal?
Yeah, we got
Steve, and your medal.
Well, we did not get a medal. We got hats and some mugs. Yeah.
Although, is it, Steve? Is it better?
Well, that winter medal is hard to get, but I think a hat and a mug would be a good second best, and probably is a little bit better, to be completely honest. But no, good on you for doing that, because I really think that makes a huge. I mean, don't be afraid for everybody out there to jump in there and just engage and be part of it, because it's all in fun. And you might be a little nervous doing it, but I'm telling you, you're not going to regret it once you get done with it.
For sure. Yep.
So let's talk about the kids clubs real quick. What were your kids' thoughts on the clubs? Did your daughter go up to the Edge, or where did they go?
No, the Edge is the one for tweens, correct?
Yes.
Is that? Yeah.
Yes.
So she was at the age where she could go to the Edge, or she could go to still the Oceaneers lab and club. Our oldest two are only 18 months apart, and so our oldest would not kind of go off on her own to the Edge. She's going to stay with her siblings, so they're all pretty close and pretty tight. And so she never even stepped foot in the Edge. They went to the club and the lab a couple times, but it just wasn't really their thing. I think they had fun, but it's also kind of chaotic with a lot of kids just kind of running around, and they're pretty chill kids and kind of a chill environment. And so for them, it just wasn't really their thing. They hit it a few times. They did Super Sloppy Science, and they did a couple of Marvel things that they had, but other than that, they didn't really use the kids club so much.
How'd you feel about that?
Okay. I expected them to use it more. And, when you walk in, you're like, man, this place is incredible. All the stuff that they have. Our first day at sea, which was, I think that would have been our second day after embarkation, we had a full day at sea, and my wife and I did a couples massage at 10 a.m. And so that was the first time they checked into the kids club. We said, all right, guys, we're going to be out of commission for an hour and a half. So you have free reign at the kids club, have fun. And 10 minutes in, they texted, we're bored.
Oh, no.
So we said, well, make it through for the next hour and a half, and then we can find something else to do. So instead of going into the kids club, then what they ended up spending their time on then throughout the rest of the week was the midship detective stuff. They got into pen trading, and so they would walk around rooms there's a lot of rooms, that have pins on the outside of the door that you can just trade one of yours for one of theirs. And so they did a lot of pin trading and the midship stuff. And so that's kind of how they filled the time that I thought that they were going to spend in the kids club, was doing those other activities.
The kids clubs are definitely not for everybody's kids. And I guess I don't really have anything more to say about that.
Right.
Yeah. It really depends on your kids. And,
yeah.
If you're for a first time cruiser, I'd say give it a try. The counselors are great. The rooms are great. I mean, I was trying to think, like, why didn't our kids connect with this? And one of the reasons may be our kids never went to like daycare at all. And I don't know if that's a thing, because it's kind of like that environment, or camp. They've never done a summer camp or anything like that. And so they just really haven't been in an environment where you go in, you don't know anyone, there's adults there, and you do an activity or play a game. Like, they've done school, and that's about it.
It is also chaos, like you said. And some people are okay with chaos, but some people aren't. And that might be the issue, because my kid's been at daycare practically his entire life, since he was 1 year old. And he still is only recently, and he's on his 14th cruise, starting to go in kids clubs.
Yeah.
So, and I'll be curious to see what happens on our next Disney cruise. If, we'll try it again and see, does he want to be in that environment?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's some good things. Like, the kids club's hours are amazing. There is no cruise line that is open as many hours as Disney Cruise Line is for opportunities to have your kids be in there. They also have specific activities some of the time, which is really good. But I do wonder how it works the rest of the time. Like, the kids have to sort of also find their own things to do. Yeah. And I think that for some kids, that's just tricky. Yeah,
that's, when we did the tour during the first day, they checked out the Star Wars games, and they thought, okay, this was cool, I want to come back and do this later. And they tried to do that, but there was just no way they could get in. Like, there were so many kids that were trying to do that, and our kids they're not very aggressive when it comes to like getting what they want. And so they're not just going to budge in line, or, if there's a lot of people trying to do that, they're going to go find something else to do. Right. And so that was kind of their experience was, the things I wanted to do were already being taken out by other people. So now they did find the Oceaneers lab was a little bit better for them because of the structure of an activity and less people. And so they did enjoy the lab a little bit more. But when it was just like this free play, they said it reminded them of, what's the daycare on Toy Story 3? Sunnyside. It's like,
oh my
God. Yeah. So yes, if you're wondering what the kids clubs are like, just watch Toy Story 3, and that's a good.
Watch Sunnyside.
Yeah.
Well, the good thing is there's so many other things going on. Every hour there's different activities that you can do. So if your kids are not the type that are going to enjoy the kids clubs, you've got the pool decks. You've also got movies on the Funnel Vision, movies being played in the Walt Disney Theater or the Buena Vista Theater, and some other things too. So.
Mm-hmm. And it's all included.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
So this is a Western Caribbean cruise. We should have started this from the beginning, but why don't you talk about where it went, and then we'll jump into the ports quick, Dave.
Yep. Yeah. So we had, after embarkation day, we had a day at sea, and then we had 3 port days in a row: Cozumel, Grand Cayman, and then Jamaica. And then we had another day at sea, and then Castaway Cay before we got back to Florida.
Well, let's jump into the different ports then. What did you guys have planned in Cozumel?
We did a Disney excursion that day, which, looking back on it, was, this was not only our first cruise, but our first time traveling out of the country with our family. Mm-hmm. And so it felt good to do that, kind of have that safety net of, we're doing a Disney excursion, having never done, any excursion before out of the country. It felt good to not have to just go out on our own. And so the Disney excursion that we did that day was Mayan ruins, some chocolate tasting, and then like 90 minutes at a beach. And the ruins were cool, definitely for older kids. It was hot that day, and we saw some families who had younger kids, and man, they were not having it, because it's just a bunch of like rocks,
A lot of history.
Yeah, a lot of history.
Yeah.
And our tour guide was Mayan, and so for us it was fascinating to hear, like, this is his culture, his heritage, his blood that he's talking about, and he was very passionate about it, and we love listening to him. And our kids were good, kind of doing that tour, even though it was hot. And then we did the chocolate tasting, the Mayan chocolate tasting, which was fantastic. And we bought a lot of chocolate after the tasting because it was really, really good. And then the beach that they took us to was, I think it's called Playa Maya.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was okay. It was spring break, right? And so...
And you got there so much later than everybody else.
Yeah. It was spring break. There was a lot of people there, a lot of, like, college-age people on spring break. Yeah, like you said, Christy, we got there later. But it was only 90 minutes, so it was kind of like a good warm-up to our beach days later in the trip, because, being from Iowa, like, we are not around the ocean all the time. And so it takes our kids a while to get adjusted to being in open water, salt water, all that. And so it was good, like, that was kind of the only good thing about it was, all right, we got 90 minutes to get you guys warmed up to being in the ocean before our future beach days on the rest of the trip.
Playa Mia cracks me up. There's this, I don't know if you saw it because your kids are older, but there's a playground, and towards the back by, like, the pool and where the bathrooms are and stuff. Mm-hmm. And next to that playground is this big, like, electrical box that says danger, and all of the stuff all over, like, stay away. And it is immediately next to the playground.
That's perfect. Yeah.
So it is like Mexico. That is just the way we'll never get that out of our head. It is just exactly perfect for Mexico. This big danger, Peligroso, whatever, danger, immediately adjacent to the playground. And there's, like, nothing blocking you from it. It's just right there. So that is my exit. That's my exit point. Bye, guys.
See you, Christy.
Nice talking to you, Dave.
Yeah, you too.
Okay. Bye, Steve.
Yeah, have a great trip, Christy.
Thank you. Bye.
So Christy's going to leave us. She's on her way to New Orleans, and you and I can continue, Dave. So, yeah, kind of knowing your family, knowing what they would enjoy, doing something like those ruins, is perfect for your kids. If your kids are probably not going to be able to sit through a history lesson, maybe a full beach day is a better thing.
Yeah.
Our kids loved it. We went to Pompeii with them, and they were just totally fascinated by it. But there were some other kids in the group that were, like, bored out of their skulls.
Oh,
so,
yeah, exactly.
Another one of those know your family. Okay, so you guys, from Cozumel, you head on over to Grand Cayman. What'd you guys have planned there?
That day, we just wanted to do a beach day. And so we got off the ship, and we took a taxi to a beach. And we just, in Grand Cayman, there's all the taxis are like miniature buses. And so you just kind of board a bus and you tell them where you want to go. So we just asked our driver, what place along, it's 7 Mile Beach is the main beach on Grand Cayman. And so we asked him, what's the best place on 7 Mile Beach? And so he gave us his recommendations. That's where we went to, and grabbed a couple chairs and an umbrella, and then just hung out there for a couple hours. And it's incredibly beautiful, white sand, clear water, which was our first time really experiencing that. We didn't have that experience in Mexico the day before. This was like the picturesque, what you think of when you think of the Caribbean. It was absolutely beautiful. And so we just hung out there for a couple hours. This is a little pro tip for anyone who goes to Grand Cayman. It's called 7 Mile Beach because it's 7 miles long. And so when you are ready to go back to the ship and you're like, oh, I can see the ship, we should just walk. That's not a good idea. So we made it about 2 miles before our family had it. That was the only breakdown of the trip, was we attempted to walk back to the ship, which was way further than we thought it was. And I Googled it when we got home, and it was like a 4-mile walk. So we got halfway there and then had to stop and call a taxi. Of course, that's then when everyone got totally sunburnt. People were miserable. It was not a good decision by my wife and I. So we got back to the ship and got some ice cream and made some apologies about asking them to try to walk back to the ship. So if you go to Grand Cayman, just use the taxis. Don't try to walk. Is my tip.
No, that's a good point. We've done that. We've been there before and done that too. So not at 7 Mile Beach, but kind of a similar experience. So did you guys bring anything with you? I know Disney gives you towels. Did you guys bring water, or what did you guys bring with? Or was there like some place to get food or anything on the beach while you were there if somebody wanted something?
There was something there, but we had brought water, and then we had our own snacks. We had beef jerky, and I can't remember what else, different like granola bars and things. And so we did that in Cozumel too, because there was not a lunch provided on the Cozumel excursion either. And so we just brought our own snacks and had them throughout the day.
So from Grand Cayman, you guys are on to Jamaica. What did you guys have planned there?
Yeah, Jamaica, we decided to just do, we wanted one of our port days to be a day where we could just hang out on the ship. And so we did get off and just walk around the port for about half an hour and just looked around at the shops. But then we got back on by I think by 10:30 we were back on, and we hit the pools. And then the aqueduct that day opened up at around noon. And so we rode the aqueduct a few times. And so our plan that day was we did not want to do an excursion just because we wanted to have that time to enjoy the ship when everyone else was off it. So, and that worked out really well. Being able to ride the aqueduct 3 times in a row was pretty great.
Yeah. So the crowds are pretty light for the most part during the day.
Yeah. On that day it was. I think there was like a 15 to 20 minute wait each time we wanted to ride the aqueduct, and the pools were not. I've heard Christy describe it as kid soup in the pools, and they weren't that busy when we were in there. So it was good. It was just a relaxing day hanging out on the ship.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to have that day sometimes where you don't feel like you have to do anything almost.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So you guys get another day at sea, and then you're on to Castaway Cay. That's like you said that was one of the places you wanted to make sure you went to. Thinking about it ahead of time, what did you guys have planned, and what did you do, or what were you looking forward to doing? I guess. So what did you do?
Yeah, we rented we did the package that was snorkeling, biking, and inner tube. And we knew we wanted to try snorkeling, and we thought this was kind of the safest place to do it. 1, because of the location, not being out kind of in open water, and 2, because of the price. We looked at doing snorkeling in Grand Cayman, but the price compared to just being able to do it in Castaway Cay. Obviously, like in Grand Cayman, you're going to be in an actual, a reef where you get a chance to see turtles and things like that. This was a much more manufactured snorkeling experience, but it was still good for us because snorkeling was just not our thing. At least for this day, the water was really, really rough and choppy. And so my wife got a little seasick just snorkeling. Our kids kept swallowing salt water, and it was a rough day on the water. I remember that day our ship docked 30 minutes later than expected because of the winds. And so the waters were really rough. I made it about as far as I could and snorkeling, and I was really tired afterwards. So there was a strong current. So it was a good experience. We wanted to go snorkeling. It's kind of a low risk attempt at snorkeling. But after that, then we kind of realized, so we snorkeled, hung out at the beach, got some lunch, and we realized, oh my gosh, we've already blown like 3.5 hours here. And time was just flying by on Castaway Cay. And so we did a quick bike tour, and then we hit Pelican Plunge once. I did that with my older 2 kids. And then we just hung out on the beach. And looking back on it, if we go to Castaway Cay again, we want to get there, get some chairs, and just hang out for the day. Like snorkeling it was a good attempt at snorkeling, but I don't think we'll do that again at Castaway Cay. And same with renting the bikes. I could see us renting the inner tubes again just to be able to sit in the water, but it's so beautiful there, and the beach is great that if we go again, we want to just have our time relaxing on the beach instead of doing activities.
No, you're right. That day goes by so fast. It's such a beautiful place. Did you guys did you go down both slides on Pelican Plunge, just out of curiosity?
No, we did whatever one was slower.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did that slow one. The first time we went, there was hardly a line at all. Then the second time we were there was a lot of people over there. But so we did them just back to back to back the first time, and we did the slow one a couple times, and then I did the fast one, and I didn't realize how quick it was. I lost my sunglasses.
Oh man.
Yeah. But yeah, snorkeling too in Castaway Cay. It's like you said, manufactured. It's it's got the break wall, but it still doesn't stop if it's a windy day. The only, I would say, negative side of snorkeling at Castaway Cay for people is it's a little bit of a ways out there to get where it gets deeper. Mm-hmm. And so if it's your first time snorkeling, it does take you a little ways to get out to where it's a little bit deeper, and that's where a lot of like the mini statue is and the submarine and all that kind of stuff. So I don't want to make it a negative whatsoever. It's just realize that I saw a lot of people the first time we snorkeled, they got about like halfway out and it was still really shallow and they're just turning back, and so they really didn't get to see very much, and you really need to get a little bit out further, I guess, on that. So
yeah, for sure. And if you, I would recommend, if you have the opportunity to, even like throughout the summer, or if you have a pool that you have access to, try to just get used to the act of snorkeling just in a swimming pool, because it's so much to try to figure out how do I use flippers, how do I breathe properly without swallowing a whole bunch of water. I think that could help a little bit, because it was, for our kids, it was like starting from scratch, trying to figure out how to use all the gear and not swallow salt water and not be terrified of swimming out in the ocean. There's a lot of things at play there. So
no, you're right. I meant to ask you that, and that's a really good point, because a lot of people they feel like my wife the first time, she felt claustrophobic by putting that mask on, and so there's a lot of little nuances that if you could try it ahead of time will help you, especially like you said, swallowing salt water too. Everything else. Well, from Castaway Cay, you guys head back. That's always a tough night. It's your final night on the cruise after 7 days. What'd you guys do that last night to kind of celebrate, your 7-day cruise?
Let's see. That was the night that I believe was showing in the Walt Disney Theater. And of course, to celebrate, I cried my eyes out like a baby during that show, being a father, and, the show was kind of centered around a father-daughter relationship. So I had a good cry during Believe, and then we went over to Wheel of Fortune in the D Lounge, played that game, and then dinner that night was at Royal Court. So we had dinner, and then after that we went to the atrium and just kind of hung out and just kind of took in all the sights. And, that last night there's a lot of characters walking around in the atrium, and so our youngest daughter danced with Ariel, and then around 10:15 we went up to Deck 6 and we watched the See You Real Soon show from Deck 6. So we kind of watched it from above instead of being down on the ground there. Mm-hmm. So just after dinner, we just kind of try to take in our last few memories of just hanging out in the atrium and being on the ship.
Yeah, I think that's we always like to, even though the kids kind of go off and do their own things sometimes, we always kind of hang out that last night as a family. We always like to go up on the top deck, Deck 11, and just walk around one more time in the evening, just taking in the sights of being on the ship at night and the sea air and everything else. And I think Believe's like the perfect show for everybody to see at the end there, just because, like you said, with the kind of that father-daughter relationship, and just the songs and everything else. It's a great way to kind of cap off a cruise like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was great.
So what did you guys do the last day? Did you guys go to your breakfast, or did you guys go to Cabanas, or how did you do that?
Yeah, we did our dinner then at Royal Court the next morning. We had the second dining. We also had the second breakfast, and that was a smaller menu for that breakfast, but really we wanted to go there to be able to see our servers one more time and give them our tips and get a picture with them and tell them thank you. And those servers, especially on a 7-day cruise, having not been on a 3 or 4 day, I don't know if this is the case, but I know for us, our servers ended up feeling like family by the end of the trip. I had read that the service was really good, but I didn't understand that feeling of you go and you do all your stuff during the day, and then you go on your port or on your shore excursion, or you hang out on the ship, or you do whatever you do, and then you come in to dinner and you're greeted with people who know your name, who are smiling, and they ask you, "How was your day? What did you do today?" And I realized, when we go out to eat here or any other just regular restaurant, usually the first words out of the server's mouth is, "What drinks can I get started for you?" Which is fine. But just this level of service of asking how our day was, asking about what we did, and, genuinely caring about how our day was and what our experience was. It was unexpected, I guess. And it was just, we loved our servers. And we wanted to go to breakfast on that last day to be able to see them one more time and say goodbye to them.
Well, that's just so well said, Dave. Yeah, the service that you get on board and that feeling of family and kind of them welcoming you into their restaurant every night is one of the many reasons we like to go back. And thinking about that, did you guys decide to book another cruise while you're on board, or did you put a placeholder, or do you think you'll be back?
Yeah, we do think we'll be back. We debated on the placeholder, and it's like no risk, right? Because you get your money back if you don't book it. But we decided not to put a placeholder on because, one, we knew that if we cruised again, our next cruise would if we did it within the next 2 years, it would probably just be my wife and I, and then our kids would hate us. So we decided not to do that, but also we ended up becoming DVC members on the cruise. It's something we had been talking about a lot. And then, once we got on the ship, we already knew all the information about DVC and had already kind of decided like, this is probably something we want to do. When we got on the ship and realized, well, first we went to one of the DVC presentations just to get the stateroom credit. I can't remember what it is. It's like $25 or $50 or something as a stateroom credit. Uh-huh. And then we're like, well, we've been talking about this for a long time. This is the time to do it. And we ended up getting like I don't remember the exact numbers, but they had some sort of a larger stateroom credit than if you became DVC members on the ship. And we got like $1,500 off of our contract with DVC. And so that is one of the reasons why we did not book another cruise, is because we became DVC members and we knew that we know that we're going to have some other trips coming up that we want to do. Like we want to hit Aulani. We want to go back to Disneyland again soon. So there's a lot of other things we want to do before we hit another cruise again. But we definitely want to go on a cruise sometime again in the future.
Yeah, that's kind of a tip for everybody on there. I know they give you some additional discounts and stuff. So if you're thinking about DVC and you happen to have a cruise coming up sometime soon, make sure you go in and talk to them on the cruise, because you get some additional benefits if you buy on board.
Yeah, I just found it. I wrote it down. We got, so for the contract that we bought, which was 200 points, we got a $500 stateroom credit. And then the promotion that they're running for Copper Creek was $1,500 off on the ship, off of the DVC contract. Yeah, it worked out well for us to do it on the ship.
Yeah, that's pretty good. We bought our second contract on the ship, and they gave us an additional 100 points. Just an additional. Not every year you don't get additional 100 points.
Yeah, right.
But yeah. we bought a second 100-point contract, and they gave us, so we got 200 points for that year that we could use, so which was kind of nice. And we've banked them ever since, it seems like. So one of these years we're gonna have a big blowout party.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
On becoming DVC members. That's a big step.
It is. We're excited for it. We're already trying to figure out what the next thing we're going to do is. But we're excited to be DVC members, and we're going to Disney, every other year already to begin with, and so we're already spending the money.
Yeah. So kind of thinking back on your cruise, the first time cruise for you, what advice would you have for other first time cruisers, planning while you're on the ship, afterwards? Any thoughts, Dave?
I would say, the first thing is either use a travel agent, or if you like to do the research on your own, then, do the research, or both. Definitely get help in your planning so that you kind of understand what it is you're getting into. Some of the things that I thought about were under the category of kids. I think if you have kids doing, or maybe even if you don't have kids, do the Midship Detective. One, it's fun, but also it is a great way to get familiar with the layout of the ship. And that's how our kids kind of got familiar with where everything was and what was on each deck, is through doing the Midship Detective game. And so that's, I think, a great thing to do. Another tip, we gave our kids journals before the trip. I think it was our Valentine's Day present to them. They each got a journal where they could write down, kind of a daily, like, here's what we did today. But then we also use that for all the autographs throughout the ship. So they each kind of have this memory book now of journal and autographs from the ship. A couple other things that I thought about were, don't feel like you have to do a port adventure every day. Like we talked about our Jamaica day, we spent the day on the ship. So, man, you're spending a lot of money to be on the ship. enjoy it. It's first class and is a lot of fun. And we kind of talked about the food, my opinion already on having a later dinner, on how that works out well for us, or for our family, it worked out well, and probably for some other families too. Get room service delivered in the morning. Like put that little note out and get some coffee delivered to your room with maybe a couple pastries. And especially if you have a veranda, man, having that coffee delivered to your room and being able to sit on your veranda before you get ready for the day is a glorious thing. And then I would say the last thing would be join a Facebook group before you go on the cruise. That was a really helpful thing for us, was being able to read tips from other people. I had questions about when we went to Grand Cayman, knowing that we're going to have to get off the ship, we're going to have to take a taxi. How does that all work? I just asked our Facebook group and got a ton of great feedback on how that all works. So find the Facebook group for your trip. You can get them. I think you can usually find them. Just type in your cruise dates, or you can go to Disboards and find it. Find your Facebook group and join that, and it's very helpful. So those are my tips.
Oh, those are awesome. I've never really thought about the Midship Detective Agency as a way to get to learn the ship, because it takes you all throughout that entire ship. So that's a really good way of that's a really good point, Dave. And I would even say we still use the Facebook groups every time. Just because there's so much knowledge out there. It's kind of fun to follow along and see what people are asking questions about. And I know there was several things on our last cruise. I was like, oh, I didn't know that. That's kind of cool. So
yeah, for sure.
And like you said, if you're a first-time cruiser, throw those questions out there. You're going to get a lot of really good answers from people that have been on board the ships before. Well, thank you so much, Dave, for coming on and taking time out of your busy schedule to share your and your family's experience. I'm glad you guys just had a wonderful trip on the Fantasy, and congratulations for becoming DVC members.
Thank you very much. And thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Oh, definitely. And when you guys head out on your next cruise, please drop us a line and we'll have you back on.
For sure.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave.
All right. Yeah, thanks, Steve.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show today. Once again, I really want to thank Dave for coming on and sharing his and his family's experience sailing on the beautiful Disney Fantasy for the first time as they did a Western Caribbean sailing. And I just love doing those shows. I love hearing first-time cruisers, kind of the build-up and the excitement, how they plan the cruise, and then kind of following along in their experiences as well. So I hope you enjoyed that as well. If you would like to support our show, I would like to remind you that you can do so through our Patreon group. You can go over to patreon.com/DCL Podcast, and you can find all the information there. And if you would like to leave us a review on iTunes or whatever platform you listen to the show, we sure would appreciate it. That helps us grow the show. It helps us grow the audience and gets the word out in the cruising and the Disney community. Well, as we move on towards show number 200, we got a little ways to go. Once again, Christy and I would really like to thank all of you who have joined us in this journey and have listened, been on the show, and interacted with us as well. It's been just a lot of fun. So before our next show, if you guys are heading out on your next vacation, all of us here at the DCL Podcast would like to wish you fair winds and safe travels as you head out on your next adventure. Once again, thanks for coming back and taking a listen, and we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.